So a filing in the Georgia election interference case reveals a first look at who could be called as witnesses in the trial. Among them is Lin Wood, who worked as a member of Donald Trump's legal team after the 2020 election.
CBS News reporter Graham Kate spoke with Wood and joins us now in Studio 57 for more on that conversation. So what'd you get from Wood?
Well, so Wood said he's honestly surprised that he's being called. He said, I don't have much to say because I wasn't really involved with the things that led to criminal charges. But there's kind of another side to this, which is one of the defendants in this case, Sidney Powell, who's scheduled to go on trial October 23rd. He said he was subpoenaed specifically for her trial. And she actually stayed at one of his properties in November and December 2020 while she was planning a lot of this kind of effort to thwart the election or challenge the election. She showed up with Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor who had just been pardoned, and a team full of people who were making the plans for challenging the election in Georgia and elsewhere. But Wood says, I wasn't involved with that. And the proof is that he only filed 2 lawsuits. They were dismissed. And he says, my name was on, he's long said this, by the way, my name was on other lawsuits filed by Powell and others. But I wasn't even a part of it, and I was surprised to see my name on it. I kind of just let them stay here while they're doing it because I also thought the vote was fraudulent, but I wasn't a part of it. So he said, I don't know what they're going to ask me about, but I'm happy to answer questions in it. And he was adamant that while he accepted subpoena to be a state's witness in the Sidney Powell charges in the Sidney Powell trial, he said, I'm not flipping on Donald Trump. He was very adamant about that. He's still a supporter of Donald Trump, and he wanted to make sure that was clear.
Just not a supporter of Sidney Powell. People getting off the Sidney Powell train. The Fulton County DA's office released a potential conflict of interest in the upcoming trial. Can you walk us through what that's about?
Sure. So that's where this information came out. What happened was the district attorney said a bunch of the attorneys representing defendants in this case, remember 19 people were charged, including former President Donald Trump,
right,
have conflicts, whether it was they had been involved with representing or filing lawsuits with other defendants or with people who are witnesses in the case. That's how they brought up these names like Lin Wood. And they're saying if you have a conflict of interest, you shouldn't be allowed to be a defense attorney in the case. And of course, the defense attorneys are saying, and Lin Wood said, the conflict isn't quite there, and so it's going to be up to the judge to say whether they can represent the defendants.
It's complicated.
Lawyers, as you know, for 3 of former President Trump's co-defendants told a federal judge yesterday that their clients' cases should be considered in federal court. Is that even on the table, and what would be the impact on this case if that were to happen?
Sure. So this is Sean Still, who's currently a state senator in Georgia, David Schaefer, who leads the Republican Party down there, and Kathy Latham, who's a former county-level GOP chair. And they say, we've come to know them as among this group of fake electors. This was a group of people who gathered and cast essentially electoral votes for Donald Trump after he lost the election and tried to have them certified. And they say that while we're calling them fake electors, they were really contingent electors, which is they were casting these votes just in case the election actually did. One of these lawsuits made the election turn in Trump's favor. And they say when they did that, they were involved in a federal action. So this is involving a federal election. They were kind of, by default, federal officials for that moment. And then there's a second part to this argument, which was they say, 2 of them say, we were following David Schaefer, and David Schaefer was following people with the White House. And then again, that's in service to federal officials, namely Donald Trump, who was the president at the time. But the other side to this was they were in front of the same judge who just recently rejected similar arguments from Mark Meadows, the former White House chief of staff. So, again, this is kind of a different approach to the same thing, but we saw
Meadows' request, it was rejected.
It was rejected, and the judge said, you didn't even really meet he described it as a kind of low bar for describing federal service in this. He said, that doesn't mean you can't prove it later, but for now, Mark Meadows' case is staying in state court.
And I would think out of all the cases that are trying to float this, he would have the strongest one, because at least he was working in the White House. But these people weren't at all. And there's nothing in the Constitution that says, well, just in case, we can kind of set up other electors just in case that things turn out differently. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't get their way.
Sure. The judge was really engaged in the discussion. He's interested in it, but we've already seen how he's ruled on a similar one.
Yeah. Graham Case, thank you very much.
Thank you.